Here comes the McBride Dynasty Rookie Rankings. On the show today, we're going to talk about a position we don't talk about a lot in Dynasty, the tight end, starting right now on the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. Welcome back, folks, to another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Lamarco, and we're diving today into Dynasty Rookie Rankings, the tight end position. Now, a lot of times after the first two rounds, some of these tight ends fall. We're going to talk a little bit about Trey McBride today, throw out some Bride puns. I'm super excited. We're bringing out Paul Blake in just a second to talk about where he has these guys ranked and why we should consider them in our Dynasty Rookie drafts this summer. Before we do, make sure you're following us across the board at Razzball Fantasy on YouTube, IG, and TikTok. And then also make sure you go to razzball.com. Not only are we doing great stuff on the flagship baseball side, we got articles still coming out on basketball and hockey, and of course, football, folks. I mean, when I tell you, we're in the lab right now. We got offensive line articles. We have injury impactful articles. We have a bunch of great tools as well. So make sure you're joining us on razzball.com to check all those things out. Let me bring in my guest today. Of course, it's Wednesday. It's our resident Dynasty Master, Paul Blake. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, Bobby. How's it going? Super stoked to be here. Just piggybacking on what you're saying about Razzball. A lot of new writers, a lot of new info. It's a pretty happening site right now, man.
Oh, we're hip. We're hip.
Yeah.
And nothing's hipper than talking about Dynasty rookie tight ends. Because I give Paul Blake an option this week. Because I was away. I say, hey, Paul, listen. Do some research, get back to me. He's like, hey, man, let's talk tight ends. Because he's a sick puppy, that guy, all right? Because he wants to talk about things that people aren't talking about. And no one's talking about the tight ends right now. And that's what we're going to do on today's show. So first off, we got to talk about the flagship guy, and that's Trey McBride. Now, Trey McBride goes to the Arizona Cardinals with Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray. They goes in the second round. So that's good news for his draft capital. Obviously, second round has a 28% hit rate, which doesn't sound high, but it's actually a lot better than in most rounds. So that's good news for his future fantasy asset. Right now is the second round pick, 55th overall. Talk to us a little bit about Trey McBride. I know you have him highly in your rankings, so talk to us a little bit about that and why you do.
Yeah, I've got him at the back end of the first round, kind of right there on the turn. Beginning the second round there for your rookie drafts. And I was honestly kind of surprised in the NFL draft that he fell out of the first round. I thought he was a first round talent. I know he's not on the Kyle Pitts level, but this guy's a stud, man. To me, he's head and shoulders above all the other rookie tight ends. So just start off there. He's the best at his position for the rookies. And if you're collecting the best at their positions for the rookies, you're doing pretty good in your rookie draft. I think he's got impressive body control, makes acrobatic catches, amazing after the catch. Colorado State actually ran this really cool play where they had kind of a tight end. I wouldn't call it end around, but kind of a sweep where they did a little, kind of a shovel pitch to him, and then he would take it around the end and really run with the ball. Amazing stiff arm, powerful runner, great receiver, willing blocker, Mackey Award winner. This guy's got it all. The one weird thing was he only caught one touchdown pass his senior year, which I don't know if that's a fluke or if there may be an issue there at the goal line. I don't really know, but I really like what he did in college. I like his situation. I know a lot of people are kind of crapping on it with Zach Ertz in the way, but Zach Ertz is 32. He's a little bit older, obviously. He's got a very lengthy injury history. And, man, I think with D-Hop out, they're going to be looking for targets. They're going to be looking for people to throw the ball to. This could be a pretty good one here.
So the Zach Ertz thing is a good thing to point out because they did just re-sign him, and his contract does run through 2024. Now, he does have a potential out after 2023, but it sounds like he's going to be there for 2 years. And now I understand that he is 32 years old, but we have seen plenty of older tight ends, the great ones like Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, perform very well until their mid-30s. So the question is, I do see that the role is there, though, long-term. We just saw Zach Ertz hop on into the Arizona Cardinals system last year, and he was the tight end 4 from the time he got into Arizona through the rest of the season, which led to them bringing in Zach Ertz. I think also with Zach Ertz, so it has been his injuries, which has been a problem. So there is an opening there for him potentially down the road. But listen, Cliff Kingsbury showed with this offense that even Max XX Williams had some flashes early on in the season. Dan Arnold the year before had flashes. So I do think the offense as long as it's Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, there's a long-term future for a tight end in this offense. Plus, you have D-Hop. You have other guys like Brown, and you have, Rondale Moore, AJ Green. You have a lot of talent there, but most of those guys are a little bit older and longer in the tooth. So I do think in the next 2 to 3 years, you might have to be patient with this one. Right now, today, you have him at 14th overall. So are you sticking by that 1-2 turn pick, knowing that you're probably going to have to wait 2 to 3 years?
I am, just because I'm really excited about the talent. And, like I said, I think he's going to could be a target right away, for those first 6, maybe even 7 weeks after D-Hop. He might take a little time to get back up acclimated to the situation there. But I do like Trey McBride. He may even wind up going up a position in my next rankings because I had John Mechie at 12, I believe. Oh, yeah. And of course, the unfortunate news about the leukemia diagnosis is it could push McBride up there, though I have had thoughts of just putting my boy Tyler Beatty right back right up into that spot, which would be really aggressive. But if you're paying attention to what's going on there in Baltimore, I mean, you got to keep an eye on Beatty. My God, that guy. You're looking at Gus Edwards possibly missing the first week or two, looking at J.K. Dobbins. But we're here to talk about tight ends. So
tight ends. I was going to say, hey, you chose this, okay? We're sticking to tight. I'm keeping you to it. Jumping down to the next guy, Greg Dulcich, Denver Broncos. Now, this guy's a little bit third-round pick, 80th overall. The hit rate drops to 17% for these guys, so it's less than 1 in 5. Third round tight ends end up becoming fantasy assets in their careers. Now, his player comps are Kobe Fleener and Jared Cook, which I thought was interesting because those guys were both seam stretchers, not your traditional blocking tight ends. He did have the 98th percentile college yards per reception, so that does make some sense there. So maybe that's why he got those kind of comps. But let's talk a little bit about his landing spot with Russell Wilson and, of course, Nathaniel Hackett now in Denver. What's your thoughts on the situation?
Well, you called it there with seam stretcher. That's exactly what this guy does. He runs by linebackers. He can get past safeties. If they're flat-footed, he's going to go right by them. You love Dulcich with the after catch ability, not quite on the McBride level, but it's close. His problem is he does not block. This guy is not there, not there to block at all. Not going to help out there, so that's going to knock him off the field in some situations. But then again, Albert O doesn't block either. That's kind of my one thing with Dulcich that I don't really like about him is he's very close to Albert O, the guy who presumably could be in front of him on the depth chart. Both of them are kind of catch first tight ends, don't really block very much, but super fast. I think Albert O's probably even a little faster. I think he ran a 4.5, 4.49 40, whereas Dulcich is close to the 4.6 range. But Dulcich is a much better pass route runner. I mean, he can get open. He can create separation. There were some reports early on in OTAs that he was really gelling with Russell Wilson, making some great plays down the center of the field. He catches the ball really well, like I said. But we'll see how things go because he did miss the last week of OTAs with some injuries. So we'll see how he feels. I think it's a minor abdominal, like a core injury that he's got. They say minor. We'll see how it shakes out. Pup lists are kind of crazy early on. So let's wait a few weeks into camp before we figure out what's going on with this guy.
So you currently have him at 30th. That's about 5 spots ahead of consensus. So you are a little bit higher on him overall. Now, listen, he does have Albert O ahead of him, and Albert O did show flashes last year. Of course, the good news with Fant leaving out the door, Albert O, his really only competition is signed through 2023. He's another player that's under contract for 2 years, but Albert O doesn't have major draft capital on himself either. So and he also wasn't drafted by this class. So it could be as simple as we have seen in the past. Robert Tonyan comes to mind with a guy like Nathaniel Hackett. He had a tight end 3 season, but also Nathaniel Hackett way back in his day with the Jaguars used Julius Thomas, and Julius Thomas was not a blocking tight end. So there's been plenty of scenarios where Nathaniel Hackett has basically used these guys as glorified pass catchers, which makes sense for his long-term outlook producing tight end ones. And also Russell Wilson. Listen, Jimmy Graham in 2015 to 2017 was doing very well inside the top 10, 5 to 7 range in points per game pretty much every season. So I actually do like it where you have him ranked. I just think that with these tight ends, especially, number one, there's a bigger learning curve, so that pushes down their draft stock. And number two is, yeah, it might take 2 seasons for him to really hit, but I do like the landing spot and the quarterback that he landed with. Let's talk now to Jelani Woods in Indianapolis. This guy's another one where the landing spot is fantastic. I mean, the Colts, there's not a lot of teams that throw the tight end more than the Colts. The problem is they throw to 3 different tight ends. So the question is, will they finally just say, we got one guy and we're going to focus on that one guy? He's a third-round pick. What we just talked about, same thing as Greg Dulcich, 79th overall, 17% hit rate. But he lands in an Indianapolis Colts spot that just lost Jack Doyle. So what's your thoughts about Jelani Woods and his outlook in Indianapolis?
Yeah, well, you're getting to it again, man. Yeah, so Jack Doyle out. Obviously, Mo Alley-Cox is there, which, man, Jelani Woods is a monster. He's 6 foot. What is he? 6'7", 260 pounds. So not quite as big as Mo Alley-Cox, but that same kind of monster size. And yeah, he's amazing after the catch. Another guy who's great after the catch. He might actually even be better than the two guys I mentioned earlier, McBride and Dulcich. Man, Jelani Woods gets out in the open field, and it's a runaway freight train. This guy is difficult to tackle. He's also a much better blocker than the other two. So he's going to stay on the field. He's going to be there on those goal line targets. And, I can see Matt Ryan kind of looking for him just to pop something up in the air and get the ball to him there near the goal line. Really like Jelani Woods. Yeah, I don't know. He may turn out to be the best one, but even better than Mo Alley-Cox. Take over this tight end one by year 2, year 3. And then, the sky's the limit on this guy. But the problem is I don't see the acrobatic catches. I don't see the sideline catches with him. But I do see they get the ball in the open field and just watch him make safeties decide whether they want to continue the NFL career or not by tackling this guy.
Yeah. His Spark X score was 93rd percentile. So he had like this crazy athletic score. But his comps are Ed Dixon and Eric Ebron. And the one I do want to talk about is Eric Ebron because, ironically, the Colts featured Eric Ebron just a full year, a couple years ago. In 2018, he was a tight end 4 under Frank Wright. So Frank Wright has utilized a pass-catching tight end. And ironically, I love to see the comp make sense. I'm like, okay, Eric Ebron, he's actually been featured in this offense before. So the other problem, though, like we just talked about, they just drafted a tight end in that late day 3, early day 4 range in Kylan Granson, and his contract runs through 2024. They just re-signed Mo Alley-Cox. His contract runs through 2024. So my problem is the Colts have shown too many times over the last few years that they'll use 3 tight ends. And that's what caps the ceiling. Because if Mo Alley-Cox and Granson and Woods are all being rotated in, no one's going to be featured for fantasy. And that's been the last 3 years, essentially, since that 2008 breakout season by Eric Ebron. However, here's my thoughts. Frank Wright's history is Antonio Gates. When he was with the Chargers, this is Gates' finishes, 9, 4, 7. So, like, top 10 tight end. Then you have Matt Ryan, who, by the way, with Tony Gonzalez from 2009 to 2013, tight end 2 to tight end 6 every season. And then 2018, Austin Hooper, tight end 6. So the coaching staff and the quarterback are definitely perfect. The question comes, will they actually feature just one guy? And I think that's going to have to be the question we're going to have to see maybe in 2023. But still, a little hesitant, I guess, when you're drafting. Currently, you have him at 39th, which is actually 4 spots lower than consensus. So you're ironically a little bit lower on him. Maybe we'll see an updated in the rankings.
Yeah, if I could add. So I think his blocking might actually wind up hurting him in this because Granson is he's more of the pass catching tight end as well. So that's what I was kind of worried about with him is that he might be such a good blocker that they keep him in a little more often and send the other guys out for pass routes. So.
Okay. Yeah. I know. So, but at the same time, that's something that'll get him on the field. Maybe that does help him. I mean, Jack Doyle was on the field a lot, and he wasn't really the most athletic guy. So if you give me an athletic freak who can block, that's fantasy gold right there. All right, let's talk about my guy, Daniel Bellinger, because he's a New York Giant. And I got to tell you, I'm a little excited about him, even though I probably shouldn't, because he's a 4th-round pick, 112th overall. The hit rate on these guys, by the way, 4%. 4%. So there's like a 1 in 20 chance that the 4th-round tight end ends up becoming a fantasy asset. So there you go. But he's got a very good 80th percentile 40-yard dash, speed score, burst score. Has, his comps aren't great, but Foster Marnell had some flashes behind Darren Waller in the years. But overall, decent landing spot in New York. Talk us a little bit about Daniel Bellinger and another tight end potentially in the New York Giants situation.
Yeah. And with Daboll, they like Dawson Knox there. This guy was the closest thing to Dawson Knox in the draft, in my opinion. He's the guy you're going to be able to get late, who has these really, maybe not top of the level athletic scores, but near there. You mentioned the 40 time. I think it was a 4.6. He had 22 bench reps, 7-second 3-cone. So this is an athletic guy. Problem was I didn't see much production in college. So he had all the tools and all the abilities, but not a ton of production in college. The other tight end I wanted to talk about a little bit was Austin Allen, who may not match the physical attributes, may not match the tools, but had a lot more production in college. Austin Allen was a guy that they used. He was an undrafted free agent for them. He won the Big Ten Tight End of the Year award last year, which we all know the Big Ten is chock full of great tight ends. Allen's 6'8", 255. He's a plotter, man. He takes a long time. I think he ran a 4.840, so he's not going to burn anyone up. But he did run a really fast 3-cone. He had a 7-second 3-cone. He does make a lot of the acrobatic catches. He is a great target near the goal line. He can go up, obviously uses that 6'8" size pretty well and is able to catch passes on the goal line. So it'll be kind of fascinating to see how this all shakes out. You also have Ricky Seals-Jones in the deal there. I did see in a report from OTAs today that Bellinger was back. I know he was on the PUP list for a moment there, but he had a pretty good camp day one. I think he actually caught a touchdown pass from Daniel Jones in practice, which it's practice, so, who knows. But love Bellinger's abilities. Love Allen's production. We'll see who winds up winning out here.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, when it comes to a situation, number one, you're landing in a situation with a guy like Brian Daboll who runs an Earhart-Perkins offense. And what that simply means is that it's all about the personnel on the field. The route concepts don't change. So, like if it's 3 receivers, 2 tight ends, they call a play and they run just those kind of route concepts. Now, that's great because they could feature a tight end in those kind of offenses, and that's what we saw with Dawson Knox in 2021 as a tight end 11. It took some time for Knox to get onto the field and become more of a featured player. So I am a little worried in the sense it might take him a year or two to become more featured. However, he's already listed in some sites as the top guy because Ricky Seals-Jones and Jordan Akins, who are the 2 veterans, are only signed for 1 season. So they could, as soon as next year, he could be the guy no matter what. But the other thing I like about this is that, Sterling Shepard, you have Wan'Dale Robinson, you have, Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, Darius Slayton. You have a boatload of guys this year, but 2 of those guys are gone basically next year. So then you kind of settle into Wan'Dale, Kadarius Toney, and Kenny Golladay with Bellinger in there. That's a really nice group of skill position players moving forward. So I do like that. Plus the offense with Brian Daboll. I just brought up Dawson Knox. Ben Watson back in the day had a top 10 finish. And even Daniel Jones. I mean, we saw with Evan Ingram. Granted, Ingram only played a half a season, but on a points per game basis was the tight end 7 in 2019 before they decided to bring in, Jason Garrett and company and blow everything up for Daniel Jones. So, but I digress as a Giants fan, not to lose my shit there. But Brian Daboll's here, and he's here to save the day. But before we go, is there any honorable mention or anything else you want to bring about these players before we close the show?
So one thing I would like to remind about Austin Allen is he had that production, but he was schemed open a lot. And that's what kind of worries me a little bit, where you said they kind of run the same pass plays regardless of who's in there. Allen was schemed open at Nebraska. He like I said, he kind of lacks that elite athleticism. So I would lean heavy Bellinger. Allen's kind of more of an after the draft, maybe first fab run, maybe just a guy to keep an eye on. I do see Bellinger's the guy who takes this, and probably Ricky Seals-Jones. I don't see much from Akins because he's older than he looks. He was a baseball player, so he got into college football a little bit late. I think he's like 28, 30, which is surprising because I think he was just drafted 2-3 years ago. So just a couple more notes on the Giants tight end situation, which we know we love to talk about.
Yeah, man. Right now today you have Bellinger going at 57th overall. So might give it a little bump, a little love bump.
I think I will be. Yeah, I think he will be coming up.
And make sure, by the way, that's it, folks. We got all for the Dynasty Rookie Rankings. Make sure you're checking out the latest article. Mr. Paul Blake just dropped his top 30 Dynasty rankings on the site. But by the way, the link's down there. Hit the link. Also, make sure you're going to check out the Razzball Fantasy Dynasty Consensus rankings we have right on the site. We have not only Paul Blake's very insightful rankings, but we also have CBS, Heath Cummings, Fantasy Pros. We have a bunch of great sites on there as well. But once again, make sure you're following us across the board at Razzball Fantasy on TikTok, IG, and also make sure you're following Razzball Fantasy on YouTube. Guys, we're just getting started. August is coming. We're going to have mock drafts. We're going to have news and notes. We're going to have Paul Blake explain to us why the 15th wide receiver should be your first fab pickup in August 15th. Trust me, we're going to have it all. So once again, I'm your host, Bobby LaMarca, from my man Paul Blake. We are out of here.